Hey there guys, Mangaka here with another patch breakdown for 5.13. This one's got a couple of changes that are going to be viable for the competitive play. Some of them aren't going to do a whole lot, but the big takeaways from this particular patch is going to be the AP power reworks, some of the champion changes, and I can't wait for our next patch to come out. Okay, let's do this. So we have the death recap. They're fixing it to be a little more accurate with the information it presents. Whoop-de-doozy. Record line projectile skill shots. They changed the code in the game so skill shots will be less buggy. This is going live and active in every single region. Yippity-skippity. Slow stacking is being nerfed. Right now it works as if one slow is applied, another slow is applied during that slow, then they would stack, and you would be like, once the first slow wore off, the second slow would take effect. This isn't occurring anymore, right? It's getting rid of slow stacking. Instead, the stronger slow is going to take over and be applied. So what this means is that compositions that run very low CC, like in the primarily slows, are going to be weaker now, which thus increases the strength of compositions that have heavy CC. Alright, is this really going to be a game-breaking change? No. At the highest level of play, champions with CC are primarily picked. You don't see a lot of no CC pick champions picked on up. Soraka isn't played too often as a support role when you have Thresh, who has a knock-up, a really powerful slow, a stun that pulls the enemy into them, all those things. So you kind of see like where this is going. This namely affects solo queue games. Basically, if your team doesn't lock in a composition with any CC, it's just going to be worse. So, cry. Champion changes. Tom Kench is going to be released. Within the patch notes, he looks to be pretty okay. I like the look of his kit. I'm probably going to pick him up. He looks like a very fun champion. Don't know if he's going to be strong and overpowered like Echo, or if he's going to have a hard release time like Bard did, but Riot will adjust numbers one way or another, and we're going to have another fun little support, maybe solo laner in the league. Echo's getting a couple of just quality things adjusted with him. No big nerfs to him after 5.12. I don't know how well he's doing at this moment in time. Maybe he needs additional nerfs. I'm not sure yet, but hopefully we'll begin to kind of see him settle into one or two roles rather than like the three roles that he's doing. Although I suppose it's unfair to talk about like three roles when we're talking a solo lane role in top or mid and jungle. But I think he'll begin to find his niche here, especially as Glaive is getting some buffs in this patch. Jace is getting a bug fix with him. His R bonuses would be applied at 5, 10, 15 instead of the appropriate 6, 11, 16, when people normally get their ultimate leveled up. So they're just fixing that bug. Now the first big change, or at least the change that wants to be big, is Kalista. They are nerfing her basic attack ratio by 10%. What this means is that for every 100 points of AD she builds, her auto attacks are only going to deal 90 damage from it. This is unique because most champions in the game, in fact I'm pretty sure every champion except for Kalista now, have a 1-to-1 basic attack ratio. Every point of AD, it's 1 extra damage to your auto attack. Alright. Her base attack damage is going to be hit by 50, or is being buffed, excuse me, by 3.5 in order to compensate for the nerf to her, and her basic damage growth stat is going to be hit as well by 3.5. Now this change is being targeted, and it's mainly most impactful in her early game as she's building up to the Bloodthirster, and I think that was the change that Riot was initially aiming with this one, just because with how Kalista can stack Rend in fights, she can deal a lot of damage. I think that's fairly simple to say and easy to understand. So Riot, what they want to do is nerf her ability to snowball while building AD and instead shift her priority to building more of the attack speed. First off, building attack speed on an ADC is stupid because it totally does not help your trading at all. Building raw AD increases your trading power because you immediately deal the damage with the auto attack rather than having to commit to a prolonged fight. Now, Kalista likes to commit to a prolonged fight. It's true with her Rend stacks getting those in, but when you can deal more damage per auto attack by just building AD and deal more damage per Rend stack, you don't need a dragged out fight in order to kill an enemy. So that's like the difference in philosophies here and why we see ADCs, even Kalista after she began to stop building Runeans first, start getting Bloodthirster first, why we begin to see this trend of building AD first. So this is going to hurt her in the early game specifically, and it's not going to be by a whole lot. Simply because, I mean, if we're thinking about it, BF Sword gives like, what, 45 AD, 10% of that, 4.5, so she loses 4 AD, which is what she basically almost gains just from the buff to her as it is. So, I mean, I don't know really what to say here. If this nerf reduced her snowball potential, then okay, I suppose it's good. But I don't think this does a whole lot because Kalista, as she is right now, doesn't even prioritize a whole lot of AD in her build anyway. it's like fairly. I mean, we're talking builds with like 280 attack damage items, a Last Whisper, Blade of the Rune King, and Runehand's Hurricane. That's a very low AD build in comparison to like Infinity Edge, Mercurial Scimitar. That's the other AD item, by the way, in the first build I mentioned. Bloodthirster, Last Whisper. That's way more AD. That's like 55, no, 5, about 45 more AD than before, and that also scales with like points into Warlord. I believe that's the mastery that gives buffs to the attack damage, total attack damage bonuses that you get, as well as the dragon bonus. So she doesn't really rely on those, and they're kind of pushing her to be more reliant on getting the Ren stacks off, which, hey, if you want to force Callista's into that identity of this is how you build her rather than, like, targeting the crit build, which doesn't make sense because most people build her with this Runehand's on-hit, stack the Ren, go for the huge reset style with her already. They don't prioritize their crit build much. You see it from time to time, but definitely her Runehand's build is much more popular. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. You want to reduce her early trading power? Freaking take down some of the damage on her W passive. 8% maximum health damage at level 1 is just ridiculous. That you could trigger every 4 seconds, 6 seconds. It's one of those two numbers, I'm pretty sure. That's like just instantly win any trade that you do, and the opponent backs out. You get a couple of extra cast of, auto attacks in, and then you can cast Ren for more damage. That's where you should really nerf her if you're looking at reducing her early lane trading power. And sure, you could complain like, oh, but that takes like, player coordination to land. Nah, a good dual Q or a professional player, if you're targeting her for that scene, is going to proc those things fairly well. You can have it scale up to its current value by all means, but nerf the early game values if you're worried about the early game. That's my rant. Kayle, getting a little bit of a buff right here. And this is coming alongside the introduction of Devour, which could be an item that she likes, as well as a buff to Runeglaive. So maybe we'll see some jungle Kayle come about, or a solo lane Kayle with Smite building these items. I swear, Smite in the solo lanes has become just like freaking standard right now. I personally don't like it because I'm a traditionalist, like Smite is a jungler spell. But if people are like, oh, but it opens up more spell diversity and strategy, fine, I'll give you that. Sorry, personal rant right here. I apologize. And so passively, her basic attacks are going to deal 10, 15, 20, 25. Now they have a base damage to them. That doesn't make any sense. Let me rephrase that. When her E is active, Kayle's auto attacks now have a base value to them. That's good, meaning that she has an extra damage when she doesn't have items. Furthermore, however, okay, they're there. And it also has the ability power scaling on it, but it's a little higher right now. So what does it mean for Kayle? Her E is going to hit a little more. It's going to hit harder. It's going to hit a little harder, and it's going to be kind of a nice buff for her. So fairly nice to have. All right, Kennen. So they're fixing up some bugs on him. They fixed up a tooltip where his passive had it marked as 1 second, but it meant to be 1.25. And his W wouldn't apply Mark of the Storm to enemies within Slicing Maelstrom. So, fixing 2 bugs. Nautilus. So, he's popular as a support. We've seen him occasionally in the top lane for some reason. I think he's just way better as a support right now. They're reducing the damage on his E in the first wave by a little bit in the late game, not too much. And the max damage of it is being nerfed by a little more of an amount, about 30 in terms of max damage goes. So, and something like that there. Just taking away some of his free damage as support, weakening his lane harass. That's namely what this change is focused on. Rek'Sai's W radius has been reduced by 40 as far as the knockup goes, so this just makes it that Rek'Sai has to be more precise with her positioning in order to knock you up. Knock up her. Funny. Anyways, Singe, magic resist now scales with level. This is a change that was also applied to Shen, and we're starting to see some teams experiment with him. I think almost every region. Don't know about Shen. I think he popped up in Korea once. I know he popped up in EU, maybe NA as well. No, he popped up in NA. I recall that one. His E root duration has been increased when flinging into the Mega Adhesive, and wait, it's most powerful laugh in the game. Okay. So what does this mean for him? His CC is way better. Once you scale his E, it becomes a whole 2-second root. That's really good for catching someone out. So he has meaningful late game CC. Now laughs whenever he flings an enemy. That's hilarious. And his base magic resistance has been increased, and he now has a growth stat. So Singe is naturally tankier to magic resistance, which means that he has an easier time in the laning phase against AP champion users. So he's a little more naturally tanky against magic damage, which is a nice little buff to him. Don't think we'll see him. He still suffers from being kited out fairly well. You just ignore the poison trail, and then, Singe is pretty much defeated. Solo queue, he'll still be pretty fun for people to play, but I don't think we'll see him in competitive play unless people are experimenting and see if these changes make him like pretty solid and good. So Skarner can no longer apply his passive on towers. Okay, that's a thing. Syndra! Oh, Syndra, how you have gone to shit with the tank meta right now. As well as ever since they tried to fix your E. Man, they just bugged it way the hell out. Buggier than Kha'Zix. A Lamau. So we got Scatter the Weak. It will now stop in front of the Wind Wall and Brahms E instead of being destroyed. So what does that mean? It's that you don't lose these spheres when they hit those things. They're still on the ground, so you can still use them with your W, which is pretty nice. So it does an interrupt combo, and you can stack them up with the ultimate, all right? So this is quite a bit of buff to her because you don't just magically lose your spheres. There's a pun there. There's a word there. It'd be hilarious, but I'm above that humor in this moment. You don't lose your spheres when you hit Wasu Wall and the Brahm Wall, so you don't lose the stacks that you could possibly have for your ultimate before you all in as you're waiting for those cooldowns. They fix a lot of bug around the Scatter the Weak's knockback and stun, sometimes not applying to units hit. They got some video example of this over in the PBE when they addressed it, so it should be much more reliable now, which is great. Fixed the bug where they could propel Darkspheres being prepared for unleashed power. That's crazy. Units stunned by Dark Sphere are no longer knocked back, so this means that they'll stay within range, so you don't no longer, wow, way to be really good at creating a sentence timer. You will not have to worry about knocking target outside of your ultimate range or messing up following up skill shots when you stun them. Good job. And then the R has the same buff as the Scatter the Weak, in the sense that, you know, if they hit a Yasuo wall or a Brahm wall, they do not disappear. They just merely bounce off of it, and you still have them to follow up with the Scatter of the Weak or pick them up with your W. So Thresh. Scuttle now, Scribblings Soul. You bastards. Quit leaving Scuttle. Quit leaving Scuttle. Leave Scuttle alone. There we go. Soul Control, fix a bug where souls appear to fly to Thresh from extreme distances. Oh, lovely. And then his Lantern will now not despawn while he's mid-flight towards his Death Sentence target, which means that, hey, it's easier to get onto the Dark Passage train to the Death Sentence. Very cool stuff. Vagar, his R missile size now scales with his ability power. Cool and aesthetic. He becomes bigger and badder as the game goes on. Xin Zhao is getting a nerf to his Battle Cry as far as the AP ratio goes. Wow, okay. So right here they saw this testing online where you could stack ability power with the Phantom proc hit, and then he would out-heal Mundo, so they're reducing the ability power on that. Probably need to reduce it a bit more. I don't know, at least for as far as him building Devourer goes. We'll see what happens. Zillion, he's got a bit of a W change right here. He can no longer, Rewind can no longer be cast when both his Q and his E are off cooldown. What this means is that you have to have one of those spells on cooldown in order to cast it, so you don't just like freely spam it. This actually is nice because you have to remember that his W no longer applies to his ultimate cooldown. So that's there to make sure that you don't just randomly use it. Actually, no, that hurts him in the sense that you can't just randomly spam it to stack tier. You have to spam one of the other spells. Don't know how that hurts him as far as mana cost goes because I haven't looked at those values, but a small change. Pulsefire Ezreal, he's feeling more responsive right now. Speaking of him up, and Devour. So Riot is on their third change to jungle enchantments by adjusting how they work and trying to buff them, which is great. And currently on PB right now, Warriors up next. Hot diggity. Devour is looking very interesting, and it's really looking to go with on-hit effects, finding the niche for an auto-attacking champion. Rather than just giving them infinitely scaling attack damage on hit, well, not attack damage, damage on hit, that's in the form of magic damage, they're instead making it so that you have this ability to proc any on-hit effects a second time once it awakens. I don't know if that's the term or whatever. So, here we go. So the starting hit on damage has been buffed to 30, so that's a buff for the early game. Large monsters will give 1 stack per takedown on kill or assist. What that means is now is that if you are doing damage with blue buff and you leash it over to your mid laner, you get a stack anyway, which is really nice. This doesn't hurt farming junglers when it comes to leashing or giving away their buffs. As long as they can get a leash into it, then they can still stack it. That's pretty good. And in fact, that's better than some of the other jungle items because you can still get Devourer's benefit from it. Just like, hey, before you take that Raptor, let me get one hit in. All right, go finish it. Yeah, free stack. On the large monster, So epic monsters give 5 stacks per takedown. This encourages on-hit junglers to venture out of their own jungle and solo farm dragon like they normally do. Very cool, or at least secure it. Champions give 1 stack per takedown instead of 2, so they're shifting the emphasis on stacking Devour away from kills and ganks and focusing more on farming the objective, which makes sense as that's what a carry on a hit jungler wants to do. And I'm talking about junglers like Xin Zhao, Master Yi. Trying to think of another one. Maybe Aatrox. Ooh, I wonder how Aatrox would do with this item, actually. That could be kind of fun. Holy crap, Aatrox with this item. I'm sorry, I'm a big Aatrox fan right now, and I'm just having like a jungle Aatrox or solo lane Aatrox with Smite could be a thing. I'd be willing to bet more jungle Aatrox first, assuming that this works. All right, moving on. Rift Scuttler gives 2 stacks per takedown. This rewards you for venturing out into your own jungle to kill the easy monster and stack that up. Now, again, I believe you have to wait until you get the Devour enchantment in order to pick it up. Let me look. Anyway, so now is that every other basic attack triggers on hits twice. That's the thing. And then takedowns no longer devours damage. So I think instead, looks like it doesn't even stack. I don't think it stacks into extra damage. It might, I don't know if it adds damage. I have to look at that. I don't know if it adds damage. It caps at 60 damage, and then it applies on hits once you get it fully stacked, or if it never scales with damage. But there's that for you. Very cool stuff. Yeah, takedowns no longer grow devours damage. So say to devour, yes. So you'll get 30 stacks, and each one of them will probably improve your damage by 1 point each, so you get a total of 60 damage on hit. And then every other base stack will trigger on hit effect twice. This includes true damage from Master Yi, healing effects, things like that. It's going to be very cool. Think about it. Just think about it if Blade Aatrox can line up his W passive to work with that. Oh, wow. Okay, when I think about it now, actually, Aatrox could be kind of screwed. Actually, I don't think this item even works with Aatrox. Let me think. Every other basic attack triggers on hits twice. If you go 1 and then 2, this never applies with Aatrox's passive. What the fuck? Because you gotta think, you buy the item. No, you have to like be so precise when you buy this item. You basically have to have it so that when you buy the item, when that passive applies, it has to apply that. Otherwise, it is never going to apply Aatrox's W damage or his heal. Wow, that is so picky with it. Maybe they'll work it so that it gets in sync with Aatrox. I don't know. I don't even know how that's supposed to work. Excuse me, I've taken too long to talk about Aatrox, our Lord and Savior. Enchantment Runeglaive. So Runeglaive is debuted, and it's not really making a whole lot of impact in the jungle, but it is making an impact with mid lane. Thank you, AP Ezreal. So Riot's giving it a little bit of a buff to it, as well as a nerf. They're nerfing the AP Mizrael. We'll call him Mizrael. His abuse cases by where it applies spelling effects. So Runeglaive was applying spell effects like with Riley's Crystal Scepter, Lange's Torment, Luden's Echo when it came to the auto attack passive. So your auto attack isn't the spell, it shouldn't be applying those things. That's what they're targeting. The spell blade ratio has been increased though to 1% of your base attack damage. This is good since AP laners don't normally build attack damage, so that adds to their damage as they're not, and won't add too crazily to it. And it has an extra 10 ability power. Maybe we'll see some Diana a bit more with this one. I don't know if AP Ezreal is going to die down after it, but Runeglaive has got a bit of a buff. It's going to be a little better, so happy fun in solo queue. Righteous Glory, the health is down, the cooldown is up. Nerfs, it's finally nerfs to this guy. So they're kind of done with this crap. This is definitely going to reduce its overall effectiveness. It's not going to be up as often. It's going to be less tanky for you. And then Spirit Visage is going to be a healing bonus to all healing. Oh, wow. So if you're picking this up and you got some healing allies in your team, this is going to help out those healers. This only applies to some of the champions in the meta right now. I can think Nidalee, if people ever pick her. Bard in his passive, if you ever drop that down. So Spirit Visage, ladies and gentlemen, all healing effects. I'll be buff. AP power itemization. So Riot's focus of this one is they want to rework the large rod lineup of spells, increase the utility on the items which are supposed to give utility rather than just damage, as well as avert the cost. So here we go. Blasting Wand costs 10 less gold, just because. The cost and ability power needed to your large rod are down. It's down by about 350 gold, but they loses 20 ability power. So it's easier to pick up an NDC large rod now, but it does less damage. So it's going to be a better like mid-game item, or it's going to be easier to pick that up as you're farming and picking up builds, because AP champions have a hard time picking up farms sometimes, at least in solo queue, or at least if you're bad on them. This guy. Rabadon's Death Cap. So the cost of it has been increased since the large rod cost went down, but the ability power amplification was increased, and the recipe includes an amplifying tome, so you have more components, more ways to pick up these items in order to build into them. Ability power bonus is now 35%. That's pretty freaking big. Ability power is still 120. New recipe is large rod, blasting one, amplifying tome, 935 gold. So now you got plenty of points to where you can pick up this amplifying tome. I think one thing that they do with amplifying tome is include a lot of builds, so you have flexibility of what you make out of it, which is pretty cool. Zonia's Hourglass. It has cheaper, but it has less ability power. So they're nerfing the damage on Zonia's. They're nerfing the cost of it, though. It's more about the utility than the damage. Luden's Echo. The cost is decreased. The less ability power, but there's more movement speed. Again, another nerf to this is supposed to be some kind of unique utility thing. We're buffing it by 3%, nerfing it for the cost of that, and stripping away 20 ability power. New Rylai's is going to be something pretty cool. So the slowing effect is strong across the board, especially for AoE spells. Summon minions now slow on hit. So the cost is up by 100. Ability power is the same. Health is the same. The recipe is a little more accessible now. It's Giant's Belt, an easily large round, amplifying tome, 700 gold. Single target slow is up to 40%. Area of effect slow with an instant is at 40%. Damage over time multi-hit slow is 20% for 1 second. So AoE and single target slows are pretty big for Rylai's Crystal Scepter. That's a big buff to champions like to use that item. Don't know if we'll see that at all as far as competitive play goes. Some minions like Mordekaiser's R or Annie's Tibbers will now slow on 20% for 1 second, and a new particle has been added for the item. This definitely kind of just helps the utility of the item. Unfortunately, though, this does take place at the same time where slow stacking is nerfed, so there is that we can mention about it. But still, 40% is pretty good. I think that champions who like to build this item, Vladimir might become a little more powerful with this one. He usually likes to build it just for the extra CC, and with all the AoE he does, yeah, he'll provide a lot more meaningful slows in fights. Archangel Staff, and now builds with Tear of the Goddess and needlessly large rod, 1,030 gold. The cost of it is up by 300. The ability power is up by 80. This means that champions who like to build this item for scaling are going to need a little more gold in the early game in order to complete it, but it does give more base ability power, which is fairly nice, and the build path is a bit changed, so this is definitely not a... This is a fair change to it, in all honesty. Seraph's Embrace, once again, 20. Rod of Ages. This one is a fairly nice buff. The cost has gone down by 100. It loses a lot of base health, loses a bit of base mana. The health growth is still there. Mana growth, however, is up by 40 per minute. So you gain extra 400 mana. All right. So before, the base on Arcane, or the maximum Rod of Ages stacks would have been 600 mana. Now it's 800 mana. Holy shit. Then you have the ability power growth, which is now increased from 20 at 10 minutes to 40 at 10 minutes. That adds a lot more power. What this means is that I think we might be seeing some Kassadin coming on up. More mana, more spells, more synergy with champions who like to build that, or who have like missing mana percentage stats in their kit somewhere, or maximum mana percents in their kit somewhere. This is definitely a big buff to Rise because he needed one, and an ability power just because more damage. So Rod is going to be less impactful early, but when it scales, by God, does it scale. Haunting Guise, 20 cost change in gold. Leandri's Torment, it costs another 100 gold. Recipes change a little bit to include a blasting wand, but the ability power is up to 80. Fairly big buff to champions like to use this, especially Rumble. An extra 30 AP, they'll take it. Void Staff, it is now a lot more expensive. 205 gold. Fair bit of amount right there. Ability power is up by 80 though, so we have a lot of these AP items getting more of those AP stacks. So while AP champions are going to be costing more to build, meaning it's requiring more gold to funnel into them, their damage is being increased. And I'm interested to see if this is going to cause a shift in the meta to where we're going to see some of these heavy AP dealing champions make a return, perhaps LeBlanc, if she can get the farm onto her, if we see teams becoming more mid-centric with these changes in order to get these huge advantages out of their AP mid laner. There is a lot of changes happening right now that could completely shift some of the solo lane meta, which we are seeing right now. Maybe we see some more AP top laners. I'm not sure yet. Nashor's Tooth cost is up. Attack speed is down, but ability power is up. Nice change overall. Sure, yeah, you nurse the attack speed on it, but hey, when it comes to casting those spells, it does better. Will the Ancients, that got rid of spell vamp, but now it has a cool new passive where your abilities heal you for 15% of the damage dealt before your opponent's resistance are calculated in. And overall, it will heal slightly less, but resistances are not going to be affecting it. Merlinomicon, total cost unchanged, and now they're changing the build so that as you pick up the Amplifying Tome, there's a lot more flexibility with it. Same thing with the Holy Grail. Just the tree line changes, nobody cares. Visual updates as far as effects goes, these guys are going to be getting it. Let's see, patching status bar, that's happening there. A lot of bug fixes coming on in, some upcoming skins, upcoming chroma packs for you guys. Ultimately, it's going to be hard to get a read for this patch just because of how many changes there are, especially the AP champion lineups. It is possible that we could see a return of some like the hard farm carry junglers coming back in, namely with their, excuse me, I'm trying to think of it. With Devour being buffed the way it is, we could kind of see like what will happen when Feral Flare was first introduced. I mean, we'll see how Riot responds to that. They tend to not favor junglers who just can farm into the jungle without being interrupted and then just come out and solo carry the game. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching this patch breakdown. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This is Mangaka, signing out.